book of Job tells the story of a man named Job who lived in the land of Uz. He was the richest man in Arabia. He had many sons and daughters. He had camels, donkeys, and servants, and he abstained and turned away from evil. He was blameless, upright, he feared God, and he loved God with everything that he had and everything that he did. But the scripture says in Job that actually one day God had actually given permission so that Satan would be allowed to test Job. And at that point, Job actually lost everything. Job lost his sons and his daughters. Job lost his servants and his camels. And then throughout the book of Job, we see it's just a series of events that are happening to Job, and he's questioning why things are happening the way that they are happening to him. And Job has three friends, and at first when they see Job, they mourn with him, they support him, but throughout they're actually bringing a series of suggestions that Job's suffering is a result of his sin. And the things they were saying were true, but not in particular to Job, because we see in Job 1 that Job was a blameless man who feared God, who abstained and turned away from evil. And so his friends brought the suggestion, but the suggestion was not actually true. And so sometimes we may be giving godly counsel. We may think it's or what may apply to someone, but it actually may not. And this is why we need to ask the Lord for guidance as we are ministering to others and providing assistance and help to others. And something also that really just, the Lord was just speaking to me as I saw when God was speaking to Satan. God said that, no, you can do whatever you want, but don't put your hand on him. That's what he says in Job 1. And so with everything that Satan was given room with, Satan actually wiped out his sons, his daughters, Job's sons and his daughters, and his servants and his camels. So Satan used the Sabaeans and the Chaldeans as the instruments to carry out his evil purposes. And so this is what Satan was able to do with all the room that was given to him. So you see, Satan didn't actually kill Job, but the things around Job, he lost those things. And Job himself actually got struck with loathsome boils. So we need to be looking in our lives. What room am I giving to the enemy? In what areas am I giving too much room to the enemy when I shouldn't actually be giving him any room at all? You see, maybe you're struggling with a certain sin. Maybe it may be swearing, but you're watching movies where there's swearing, watching the secular music where there is swearing. So we need to be discerning and looking in our lives. What areas am I giving too much room to the enemy? And then cutting out those areas of our life and then surrendering it to the Lord. And as we see the book of Job, as it goes on, God actually reveals himself to Job. He says to Job, "Where were you when the foundations of the earth were made? Do you know when a deer gives birth? Do you know its offspring? Do you give a horse its strength?" Now, obviously, Job couldn't answer any of these questions, and rightfully so, he couldn't. And the main point of this is, we may be going through trials, we may be going through hard times, and we may just be like Job. Why am I faced exactly with this? Job was asking that same thing, and actually Job he never actually got a specific answer to his question. But Job actually saw God. You see, in Job 42 it says, I only heard of you, but now my spiritual eye has seen you. As a result of God revealing himself to Job, Job was able to actually see the manifestation of God. He was able to have seen God being revealed to himself. And so Job may not have gotten the answer to his question, but he did get the answer, which was God. And so we may not know why we are faced with these trials, but we know that God is the answer. We know that when we follow Jesus, it is an invitation to fellowship with him, even through our sufferings. And we see throughout Scripture that that Jesus is known most intimately through sufferings. We see the Apostle John when he was in Patmos Island, when they tried to drown him with oil, and he was sent off to Patmos Island, and he wrote the book of Revelation, and he wrote the book of Revelation. We see Stephen as he was stoned, and he looked up and he saw the heavens opening up. We see Paul as he was shipwrecked, as he went nights without sleeping. He was hungry and he was thirsty. Jesus is most known intimately through suffering. Sufferings cause us to rely on him. It says in 2 Corinthians 12, when I am weak, he is made strong. His grace is sufficient enough for us. His power is made strongest in our weaknesses. We know that the sufferings we go through, they're preparing an eternal glory beyond measure. You may be like Job. You may not understand why am I faced with or what I am faced with, but ultimately, sufferings, these trials, it causes us to know God deeper. It causes us to know God's character even more. It causes our character to grow. And Job just seeing God, how God was saying, where were you when the foundations of the world were created? God is talking about how he laid he knows the constellations. God is talking about how he gives a horse its strength, and he knows the offspring of a deer. And these are all things that Job had no clue about, showing that God is in control. God is there to strengthen us when we may be facing adversity. So it's up to us that when we are faced with what we're faced with, to keep our eyes fixed on him. And we look towards the end that Job was actually blessed with more than what he had at the beginning. So once the spiritual is sorted, as God revealed himself to Job, the physical is now sorted. The spiritual and then the physical. So once we get everything right spiritually with God, then the physical comes.